Nadia Battocletti just walked into a loaded Diamond League 5,000 meters and beat women who had crushed her earlier this season. She did it only days after a huge European Championship double, and when the race finally came down to the finish, Nadia produced something she had never done before. On August 23, 2026, Battocletti lined up for the women's 5,000 meters at the Silesia Diamond League in Chorzow, Poland. This was not an easy field. Freweyni Hailu, Likina Amebaw, Aleshign Baweke, Marta Alemayo, Rose Davies, and several other top distance runners were all there, and some of them had already run much faster than Nadia in 2026. Amebaw came in with a 14:18:41 season best, the fastest women's 5,000-meter time in the world that year. Hailu had run 14:18:94, while Baweke had clocked 14:18:54. Nadia's own season best was nowhere near those numbers, so if the race turned into a flat-out time trial from the gun, she would have been facing a very hard task. But Silesia did not unfold that way. The field stayed packed through much of the race, and nobody managed to stretch the group enough to remove Nadia from the fight. That completely changed the type of challenge, because Battocletti did not need to match personal best in the field. She only needed to stay close until the race reached the point where speed and timing mattered most. Nadia did exactly that. She stayed calm through the early laps, avoided wasting energy at the front, and kept herself in position while the group moved through the middle of the race. There was no panic and no unnecessary move from far out. She waited while other runners did the work. As the final stages arrived, the race began to tighten. Hailu was still right there, and several women remained close enough to believe they could win. Nadia now had the kind of race she wanted: a large group, tired legs, and one final move likely to decide everything. When Battocletti finally attacked, the change was immediate. She accelerated hard over the closing part of the race and forced everyone behind her to react at once. Hailu tried to follow, but Nadia had created enough separation to keep control as they charged toward the line. Battocletti won in 14:54.09. Hailu finished second in 14:54.62, just over half a second behind, while Australia's Rose Davies took third in 14:55.39. Marta Alemayo and Baweke were also right behind, showing just how tightly packed the leaders remained at the finish. And it was nowhere close to Nadia's Italian record of 14:23.15. That is important because the story is not about the clock. The story is what the result gave her. It was the first Diamond League victory of Nadia Battocletti's career. For an athlete who already had Olympic, world, European, and global indoor medals, that was one of the few major things still missing from her resume. But she had never stood on top of a Diamond League podium before August 23. Go back to the Rome Diamond League on June 4th, 2026. The pace was brutal. Amebaw won in 14:18.41. Baweke finished second in 14:18.54, and Hailu was third in 14:18.94. Battocletti finished 13th in 14:45. On June 4th, Nadia was nowhere near the front when those same Ethiopian stars turned the race into a speed test. On August 23, she beat all of them. Nothing magical happened to Nadia's personal best between those two races. What changed was the way the race was run, and Nadia showed that she now has more than one way to compete at the highest level. In Rome, raw pace ruled. In Silesia, patience, position, and finishing speed mattered more. That gave Battocletti a chance to use one of the strongest parts of her racing, and this time she took it. The timing of the win also makes it hard to ignore. Nadia had just come through the European Championships in Birmingham. On August 11, 2026, she defended her European 5,000-meter title in 15:37.84. It was another tactical race, and she waited until the closing stages before making the move that broke the field. 3 days later, on August 14, she returned for the 10,000 meters. Battocletti stayed patient through the early stages, then moved clear late and won in 31:41.7, finishing more than 4 seconds ahead of Maureen Koster. Those two victories completed another European 5,000 and 10,000 meter double. Nadia had already won both events at the 2024 European Championships in Rome, so Birmingham gave her the same double for the second straight edition. That alone would have been enough for a huge stretch of racing. Instead, 9 days after the 10,000-meter final, Battocletti showed up in Silesia and beat another world-class field. Nadia had been home for only a few days after Birmingham and was coming off 2 demanding championship races. She decided to compete anyway, and that decision ended with her first Diamond League victory. That is where this season starts to look much bigger than one result. Battocletti's rise has been building for several years. At the Paris Olympics in 2024, she finished 4th in the 5,000 meters and then won silver in the 10,000. That she could fight with the best distance runners in the world. At the World Championships in Tokyo in 2025, she proved Paris was not a one-off. Nadia won silver in the 10,000 meters behind Beatrice Chebet, then added bronze in the 5,000 behind Chebet and Faith Kipyegon. Those performances showed that Nadia was already one of the best championship distance runners in the world. But 2026 added another part to her game. On March 21, 2026, she won the 3,000 meters at the World Indoor Championships in Poland. Battocletti stayed patient during the race, then used her speed in the closing stretch to win her first global gold medal. That result matters because the 3,000 is shorter and usually demands more speed than the 5,000 or 10,000. Winning it showed that Nadia had become dangerous across a wider range of distances. Not only in long championship races, Silesia brought those pieces together. But she also had enough speed to win when a slow 5,000 turned into a fight. Beatrice Chebet and Faith Kipyegon remain huge threats at the global level, and several Ethiopian runners have much faster 5,000-meter times on paper. Nadia's Italian record of 14:23. 15 is still well behind the very fastest performances ever run. She does not have to be the fastest woman in the field to become the most dangerous woman in the race. Battocletti already knew how to win European titles. She had already earned Olympic and world medals. She had already become a global indoor champion. If Nadia is allowed to sit close through a slow or uneven 5,000, and after the way she finished in Silesia, one thing is becoming very clear. If Nadia Battocletti is still there when a major race reaches its final few hundred meters, nobody around her can feel safe.